AskReddit by Abrupt Dust. What is the most important lesson we learned from the pandemic? The more they call you a hero, the more disposable you actually are. Those who call you a hero plan to sacrifice you. That a very limited number of people have the ability to even consider they might be wrong. You could also learn this by just being on Reddit. That I enjoy staying 6 feet away from people minimum. I loved the joke of when people in Nordic country heard the 6-foot limitation is over, they sighed in relief and returned to 15 feet away. I learned that I put my career ahead of my kids. Pre-pandemic the kids were in school and after school care until my husband picked them up. I was getting home around 8:39. Quarantine was the most time I had spent with them since they were toddlers. I cried when they went back to school because I truly cherished March the 24th of August 7 with them. Ended up quitting my job so I would be home for them. The pandemic taught me that family is more important and you really cannot get that time back. It's really unfortunate that 4 years later, a 2-income household is now the only way to afford both living expenses and groceries. I remember the first Sunday of the pandemic when we didn't have all-day swim meets. I said to my wife, "This is nice. Maybe we were overscheduled." People are stupid. Sometimes I think about how people today would react to things like air raid blackouts. My grandma tells stories about them. You'd have to turn off all your lights and the street lights would all go off at a scheduled time. And people did it, because there was good reason for it. Now, I'm pretty sure some would build spotlights just to be spiteful. Then how about actual shortages and rationing? Not of luxury goods, but of things like flour and cheese. Folks went nuts over imagined shortages. Bit of a family heirloom is a glass washboard. They used glass because there was a local glass factory and there wasn't any aluminum or steel. We need to stop saying avoid it like the plague because people don't do that. Haha, good point. Bold of you to assume people learned anything. People learn to double down on being idiots, haha. If a more dangerous disease does ever come along in my lifetime, I may finally enjoy some peace and quiet. Hear hear. That we won't learn anything from it for the next pandemic. I actually think COVID has made us a lot more vulnerable to the next pandemic, rather than less, at least if it occurs in the lifetimes of those who live through COVID. If something comes along with an IFR of 10% etc., we're fucked. COVID laid the groundwork for the politicization and skepticism around public health. Even folks that took COVID seriously will have pandemic fatigue and won't want to do that again. The only silver lining I see is on the technology side. COVID was a good proof of concept for rapidly creating and disseminating a vaccine in less than a year. That knowledge and infrastructure at least will be helpful for the next one, though still problematic when half the population doesn't want to take it. You can work from home effectively. I live in Melbourne, Australia. We had the longest lockdown on the planet and, as a result, pretty much all jobs that can be hybrid have become hybrid. I work from home full time. If you had asked me in 2020, would you limit your outdoor activity for 6 months in exchange for never having to commute to work again, I would say the same thing I'd say now. Fucking yes please. That several people in my family are extreme assholes. Just how tenuous our society really is. People literally got into fist fights over toilet paper. The things holding it together and keeping us rational are less strong than we assumed. Here's me thoughts. I'm Gen X. We learned a lot about the WWII years from movies and newsreels, aka propaganda, and from what our families told us. Supposedly everyone pulled their weight with regard to aluminum drives, victory gardens, gas rationing, sugar rationing, using oleo instead of butter, and on and on. They did it cheerfully and out of patriotism. After the COVID years, I call bullshit on all that rose-colored nostalgia. People went bonkers over wearing a paper surgical mask for the 45 minutes they were in the grocery. Yes, we're a more divided nation now, but I'm betting my great aunt Betty had a goddamn black market butter operation going at her farm. People don't change that much, and a lot of ugly truth was revealed. If there is a zombie apocalypse, a good number of people will hide their zombie bites. We used to think horror movie characters were unrealistically stupid. Now we know they are just a reflection of how dumb the average person is. I've been living paycheck to paycheck for years. This means being socially isolated at home. You go to work and then you go home. Occasionally you can afford to go out somewhere and haircuts become a low priority thing. The way I lived for a decade other people did for 2 weeks and started freaking out. As a disabled person who can't drive and has always had to rely on delivery services for my food, groceries, household items, etc. I really felt this on a deeper level. I'm confused why other people who are able-bodied weren't resilient enough to adapt. Deleted. The most important lesson we learned is we don't learn our lesson. People will believe a lot of crazy things to justify their unkindness and lack of empathy for others. Industry doesn't care, and essential workers are expendable. You're paid to do a job, but you're never paid to be respected. And the world is filled with scabs. The job is essential, but not the person doing it. They are replaceable. Society will always be at the mercy of its dumbest members. Removed. If companies double prices due to an act of God and we agree to pay it, they will just make that the new price when the coast is clear and no one can do anything about it. The Democrats had a bill that would have stopped price gouging like that. Guess who blocked it? Just wash your hands. Every time I heard this at the beginning of the plague I thought, who isn't washing their hands throughout the day, and to my horror, I realized, a ton of fucking people. Y'all are nasty. Employers take advantage of economic turbulence to tighten leashes on employees. Authoritarian management style greatly benefited from the economic turbulence and learned they get away with offering less options, services and cut corners on quality with their products. No matter what, people are gonna do whatever the hell they want. And then blame others for the consequences. People are all talk but rarely give a crap when it comes down to doing the right thing. I worked in a children's hospital during the pandemic. For years people went out of their way to help the sick kids at our hospital. But it was all performative, all just for PR and to look good. When asked to put on one mask so the kid with cancer didn't get sick, these same people lost their minds. Some openly said that the kids dying were sick anyway, as if they were to just be discarded or we should even try. God, I hate when people are like the people who died were going to die anyway, selfish assholes.